Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Schmedes. For those of you that don't know me, I am the men's small group coach here at The Well, as well as the Freedom Small Groups coach, along with my awesome wife, Megan. I love talking about leadership, so I'm always glad when they ask me to do these videos. But in the last few years, I've noticed a big change in how I'm leading, and that's all come from my understanding of the Bible and how leadership is explained in the Bible. So I kind of want to talk about some of those things today. So my main focus that I want to talk about today, it might be hard for some of you to hear, and I only say that because it was hard for me to hear as well, but it's this. You don't know everything, okay? So I know that some of us are so blessed to have teenagers at home, that they are lucky that they actually do know everything. So, we can just ask them. But for those of us that don't have those teenagers at home or don't necessarily trust their wisdom, we're going to look at some things today in a different way. It can mean a lot of things that we don't know everything, but let me start with this point. We're all in leadership. If you're watching this video, we're all in leadership here at The Well. So that means each of us have our people. So let me ask you this. How are your people doing? The truth is, we probably don't know 90% of that answer, or 90% of the time, really. The only way we can get to know that is to be transparent with them. So just an example, Megan and I, whenever we would start a new small group, the first thing that we would do, there's a curriculum actually that we have available here at the church called Community. It's by Andy Stanley in North Point Church, and it's very simple. It's like a 25-page book. It's really short, but it gives you kind of the standard on how to run a small group. So I started to think through this on how this could apply in other parts of the church, other parts of your business, other parts of everything. So there's 3 principles that come into play within that setup. So I want to go through those first. So the first thing that the book says, and this is just so true, is to show up. Get your people to understand that you are a group of people that is there to grow together and to get to know Jesus better. So this applies not only to small groups, but also to our dream teams as well. Like, you're a group of people that are gathered together to do work for the Lord, and we want to be able to share stories with each other, be transparent with each other. The biggest thing that I have seen is the enemy sometimes gets into our brain and starts to give us excuses to not show up, right? So if you're in a small group, or say if you're serving with your spouse, and your spouse is sick or your spouse is out of town, sometimes our natural inclination is to, well, my spouse is out of town, I won't be there. No, we want them to show up. We want them to be there. So every opportunity that we have to actually show up and be there, we need to be there. It will just add a whole nother level of the relationship. Number 2, we ask that everybody join in. So what this means is it might take a little bit of time, but we want everybody to fully join into the experience. We want them to, whether it be a small group again or a dream team, we want them to fully jump in. If you're on, say, the cleaning team, that just doesn't mean showing up and doing your cleaning and going home. Get to know the other people there. Get to be transparent with them as well. But the third one, and the most important one that I feel, is be real. So it's the most important part, because I think that sometimes we will ask of our people what we are not willing to do, and we need to make sure that we are always willing to do what we ask of our people. So what I mean by that is this. Would you be more apt to follow a leader that is transparent with you and tells you their story so that you can feel comfortable sharing your story with me? Or would you rather just have a leader that seems to have it all together, but is expecting you to give them their story all the time? It just doesn't add up, right? We want this to be an even conversation here. So within that curriculum, community, The next thing that we would go through is sharing our testimony. And now, we always went first, and we would always share our dirt first. Megan and I have a crazy story. Luckily for us, it just turned really into a redemption story. God has given us some blessings and really given us the guidance that we needed to work through a lot of things in our life that were just complete messes. I'll share the story with you at any time if you ask me. So the point of that is saying that we are far from perfect. Well, I'm very far from perfect. Megan is pretty close to perfect. She kind of evens us out into the far from perfect category there. But what we have seen is that when we share those stories and we share the fact that we have had difficulties, and we still have difficulties, everyone else feels more comfortable sharing as well. The number of times that we have heard the words, "I've never shared this with somebody before," is amazing. It is literally like angels singing. Because what's about to happen is you're no longer going to get their Instagram story. You're going to get their real story. And when you can dig into that and really start to pray about it and having an understanding of what it is that they're going through or have gone through. Most of those stories stem from childhood. A lot of them stem from early adulthood. Some of them stem from where they are right now. But it's still a story that they've never shared before. And if you're transparent with them and they're transparent with you, that's called a relationship. So it's a huge process. So now the challenge is this: as leaders, how do we get to everybody, right? Especially if you're over a dream team. If you're in a small group with people, it happens pretty naturally. Don't skip that step. Don't skip the getting to know people. Don't skip the being transparent people. Don't skip the part of letting them know that you are far from perfect, right? But in a dream team situation, some of our dream teams are big, right? And continue to grow. So how do we get to that place? It'll sometimes feel impossible, but here's the key. It doesn't have to be you that always makes the connection. So let me give you an example. Say there's somebody that you are leading in your dream team. You've gotten to know them very well. You've kind of followed these steps, actually. You know them well. They know you well. They feel comfortable with sharing their story with you because you've been transparent with them. There's going to come a point where when you pray, you'll start to feel it on your heart to ask that person to start being the person that is going to have those conversations with other people on that dream team. So, for instance, if I pray and I say, "Hey, John, we have some new people on the dream team. Remember when you joined in and we started to talk and I got transparent with you and told you my story and you told me your story and how connected that made us? How would you feel about sharing your story with that person? I think that you'd be a good fit for them. I prayed about it. God put your name in my mind, and I would love for you to make that connection with them as well." So what this is going to do is, it's going to raise up a new leader, right? It's going to give somebody a responsibility that they didn't even know that they were capable of, and it's a simple thing, right? But also, it's going to give you the ability as a leader to know more about all of your people, right? I can't get to everybody, but within a group, if everybody's accounted for and everybody has somebody to go to, then you're going to feel a lot more in the loop. So this leads to part 2 of this, and I will call this the "you can't do everything." You can't. I've been known as a control freak when it comes to certain things. I have the I'm the one that has to do this or it won't get done right mentality before. But this is really where the Bible changed me. I know that I need to pray and trust God in giving me guidance. For instance, in this example that I just gave about handing it off to other people, I would have never done that 7 years ago. Never. I would have been like, okay, I got to get to that person. I got to get to that person. That wears you down after a while. But when you start to trust other people and give them the guidance that they need to be leaders as well, it lifts you up completely. So I need to trust that God is putting the right person in front of me and giving me the wisdom that I need for the guidance. But we're wired that way, right? We're wired in the way that we want to be in control. Like, let's look at it this way. All of us are leaders because at some point we probably had some control issues, right? Like, that's why we become leaders. We want to make sure that things are going to go our way. I mean, to be frank about it, that's why a lot of people step into leadership. Yeah, you might be a great person. Yes, you might have great speaking abilities. But at some point you were like, I'd really like to be in control of this because I think that I could do it better, right? So we want to be in charge, but the thing that we have to remember is God's in charge. God is in charge. We're really good at trusting him in some things, but then when it comes to relationship stuff, we kind of fall apart sometimes. We want to be able to trust him. So when we're praying to him and he's giving us this information to talk to somebody or invite somebody or ask somebody and we don't do it, we're not trusting him in that. And the funny thing is, and the ironic thing is a lot of times when we're doing that, we're talking about building his church, and he's speaking to us. So let me give you an example of this. I was watching a game show the other night, and I learned a fact. So let me give you an example of sometimes where we just naturally do trust God, and it puts me in a place where I don't understand when we don't trust God. So say I'm going to take Matt here on a picnic. Me and Matt are going out, and it's a beautiful day. I got some great food. 72 degrees out. Me and Matt can both sweat, so we want it to be a little bit cooler. Some nice, beautiful, white, puffy clouds above us blocking the sun. It sounds heavenly, right? So we get out there, and then all of a sudden, I start to think about this fact that I learned on a trivia show the other day. That white, puffy cloud that is above us weighs over 1 million pounds. 1 million pounds, a cloud. Like what we normally think of as like this light, puffy stuff that we can throw around when we decorate with clouds. We're using the little foam stuff and everything that weighs less than an ounce. That cloud weighs over 1 million pounds. Yet it's never even crossed our mind. When I think of 1 million pounds over my head, I think of like the anvil falling from the sky and like a crushing Wile E. Coyote. Like that's what I'm thinking. So if I start to think about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that cloud weighs 1 million pounds. But here's the thing, we trust God, right? In that. We have given him trust because we see it on a daily basis and we understand it. He even gives it to us in a way that if that cloud becomes too heavy, he's going to give it to us in small portions, called rain, right? He also has given us the intelligence to be able to figure that out when it is going to rain. We have radar. We have meteorologists. We've figured all that out. We know when that's going to be an issue for us. So God has given us that wisdom as well. But when it comes to relationships, we're not trusting God. We just aren't. So why aren't we doing that? We need to focus in. We don't have a radar for people. It would be awesome if we had a mood ring. It would be awesome if we could see what other people's feelings are at that given time, but we don't. In John 7:24, it says, do not judge by appearances, but judge them with right judgment. Meaning, don't look at a happy picture on Instagram and assume that your people are all good. We need to really dig in to get them to open up. This also applies to people that we want to invite into our groups. We need to know them. Remember that if you're praying for people to be involved in guidance, when you feel a tug to invite somebody in, you may be the answer to their prayer. From the people that I've met in the last few years, everyone wants growth. Everyone wants to move closer to God. They may just not know how. They may need a nudge. They may need an invite. And if we feel that we know them well enough just by appearance and don't invite them, we may be missing out on our part of a miracle. If we say we feel like they're good, or we feel like they're too busy, or I feel like they wouldn't be interested, I'm telling you right now, that's the enemy keeping you from asking that person to be involved and for you to get to know them. So, in closing, on a personal note, the people that I consider my best friends in this world have all come from invites in this church. whether me being invited into something or me inviting somebody into a group and then really building that relationship around that. So what does God have in store for you? Well, just like I said in the beginning, we don't know everything, but I bet it'll be awesome. So thank you for your time. If you ever have any questions or any talking points that you'd love to hear about, contact me. And thanks, everybody. Have a great day.